Hello. For my next review, and I know it's a bit late, I decided to review Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones, which celebrated its 50th anniversary back in May. First, let's look at the album's title. They were in tax exile at the time, having spent the money they owed the British government, and left the country before their assets could be seized. They settled in the south of France, and since a proper recording studio wasn't nearby, the band began recording the album in the basement of Keith Richards' home using their mobile recording truck. Recording of the album began in June of 1971, and typically, the sessions lasted from mid-evening to early morning, and not everyone showed up for each session. Mainly Mick Jagger, who only sporadically showed up for the recordings, and Bill Wyman, who sat out most of the sessions in France because he didn't like the atmosphere of Richards' villa. Richards led most of the recording sessions here, and along with a great deal of drugs being used during the recording sessions, there were also a number of visitors, some of whom contributed to the recordings. The basement's frequently hot environment also made intonation and sound checks difficult. The band left France in December of '71, and sessions resumed at Sunset Sound in Los Angeles, with the album finished by the following spring. In LA, Jagger was largely in charge of the sessions, and he managed to draw from the city's vast pool of talent for both backing vocalists and keyboardists. Exile on Main Street was a worldwide success on its release, despite some music critics calling it inconsistent in terms of quality. 50 years later, it's still considered the best Rolling Stones album of all time. Let's now take a closer look at the songs. Let's start with the two covers. Stop Breaking Down wasn't the first of his songs that they had covered, but it was heavily rearranged by the band from the Robert Johnson original. This was one of several album tracks that were involved in a legal dispute between the band and one of their former associates, ABK Co., or ABCO, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, which led to the latter getting some royalties from the songs. Stop Breaking Down features some amazing slide guitar work from Mick Taylor. I also really like the start of the song. It's almost like someone turning the keys in an ignition and getting the rhythm section to start up like an engine. Shake Your Hips is originally by Slim Harpo, and according to the song's citation-free Wikipedia segment on the Stones' version of the song, it was Mick Jagger's idea to include it here. According to the Wikipedia's page for the whole album, Ian Stewart plays piano on the track. It's pretty good, although the vocals are a little quiet for my taste. Now to the original songs. As one AllMusic critic put it, Rocks Off perfectly sets the mood for what's to follow. Murky, gritty, and menacingly raw, its strung-out incoherence captures the record's debauched brilliance with marble-mouth eloquence." End quote. In short, it's 4.5 minutes of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I'd have to say it's one of the best opening tracks on a Stones album. Turn on the Run and Soul Survivor are, judging from their lyrics, strained relationship songs. They don't exactly stand out the most among the album tracks outside of the former's title and the latter's excellent guitar and backing vocals. With lyrics partially lifted from the folk song Man of Constant Sorrow, Let It Loose is a slow-burning piece of gospel blues featuring a lot of backing vocalists and a brass accompaniment. There are two conflicting stories about the origin of the song. One, that Mick Jagger was influenced by attending the services of Reverend James Cleveland, and two, Jagger himself has claimed that Keith Richards wrote the lyrics, and that there probably wasn't any genuine religious meaning behind them, a claim that Keith has denied. Work on the song began before the album's primary sessions did. Let It Loose is definitely my favorite song off the album, overall. One of only two songs in the band's catalog co-credited to Mick Taylor alongside Jagger and Richards, Ventilator Blues has an almost nail-biting urgency to it. According to Richards, the song sounded a bit off when they first recorded it in France, so the song had to be completed in Los Angeles. And in a 2003 interview, Charlie Watts said that they rehearsed it plenty of times as a possible set piece for their live shows, but they were never able to get it to sound as good as the studio track. While this isn't one of the most noteworthy songs on the album, I think it definitely has a lightning in the bottle quality to it, and it's one of my favorites. I Just Want to See His Face segues straight out of Ventilator Blues and is an energetic chunk of gospel music. According to Jagger, recording began as a loose jam between him, Taylor, and Watts before the other parts were added. Bobby Whitlock claims to have played electric piano on it. The song is great, but it's not one of my favorites. One of the Stones' more politically charged songs, Sweet Black Angel, was apparently inspired by Jagger seeing a poster of civil rights activist Angela Davis. The lyrics address the murder charges Davis was facing at the time and speak out against the trouble she was facing. Despite the band's use of the N-word buried in the song, it still presents a strong message today, given the constant civil rights issues our nation is dealing with. Keith Richards says that Happy was mostly written and recorded over the course of a single afternoon during the band's time in France. Notably, the song only features Jagger and Richards from the band itself. The rest of the track's parts were covered by Jimmy Miller on drums, Jim Price on horns, and Bobby Keys on baritone sax. It went on to become the only charting Stones single to feature Richards on lead vocal, and is one of the album's biggest highlights. Rip This Joint is the fastest song on the album, and lyrically, it runs across the United States from a foreigner in America perspective. Bill Wyman does not play bass on the track. Instead, Bill Plummer provides an upright bass part. The song also features Nicky Hopkins, Jim Price, and Bobby Keys. It's another one of my favorites off the album. Sweet Virginia is one of the band's more straightforward country-style songs. Lyrically, the song makes plenty of drug references. Musically, the entire band is on the track along with Bobby Keys, Ian Stewart, and several unidentified backing vocalists. The song was released as the B-side to the Rocks Off single. While I'm not a big fan of country music, I like most of the Stones songs in that genre, this probably being my second favorite country song of theirs after Dead Flowers. One of the 3 songs on the album, where Keith Richards handles the bass part, the lyrics of Casino Boogie were written haphazardly by Jagger, who wrote the lines out on scraps of paper, and had the band members individually pick them out, with the finished song's lyrics running in the order that they were chosen. Curiously, this song has never been played live by the band. Recording attempts at Loving Cup began during the Let It Bleed sessions. The finished version is a full ensemble piece featuring the full band alongside Jimmy Miller on maracas, Bobby Keys and Jim Price on sax and horns respectively, and Nicky Hopkins on piano. Like several other songs, it got tangled up in legal issues due to the prolonged development of the song, and ABKCO Records were ultimately given publishing rights to it. The song's live history is sporadic, dating back to 1969 when it was first called Gimme a Little Drink. Not one of my overall favorites off the album, but it's still an amazing song. All Down the Line's origins date back to the late 60s as a possible track for the Sticky Fingers album. Oddly enough though, the finished song was never attempted during the band's time in France, and all the recording work done on it was done in Los Angeles. The band actually cut a demo version of this recording to give radio stations in LA to play. For one of the more straightforward rock pieces on this album, it's pretty good. Described by musician and journalist Bill Yanovitz as a twangy, 3-chord honky-tonk but not typically country, Torn and Frayed is about a wandering guitarist. In his review, Yanovitz also noticed the resemblance to the music of Graham Parsons. Understandable given that Parsons was present for some of the recording sessions in France, and one of his frequent collaborators, Al Perkins, provided the pedal steel guitar for the song. While it's not one of my favorites, Torn and Frayed is definitely one of the more understated pieces out of this album's best. Tumbling Dice began development under the title of Good Time Women during the Sticky Fingers sessions. Since Bill Wyman wasn't present for the recording of the song, Mick Taylor filled in on bass, while Jagger played a rhythm guitar part. Recording engineer Andy John says that the recording of the song was difficult, and some sources have claimed that as many as 150 takes were made to complete the song's basic track. As far as the lyrics are concerned, Jagger says he was inspired to write them after discussing gambling in LA with a housekeeper. Tumbling Dice was the first of 2 singles released in support of the album, peaking at number 5 on the UK singles chart and number 7 on the US Billboard Hot 100. Shine a Light began life as a song about then band member Brian Jones and his worsening drug addiction and distancing from the rest of the band. It was originally titled Get a Line on You. After Jones' death in mid-1969, a version of the song was made for Leon Russell's self-titled album, but it wasn't included. The final version, under the title Shine a Light, was recorded in late 1971 in London. It's quite a touching tribute to their fallen friend. While it took a few listens for the album to grow on me, I can say now that I agree with the opinion that most people have, in that this is the best Rolling Stones album. My favorite songs off the album are Let It Loose, Stop Breaking Down, Casino Boogie, Shine a Light, Rip This Joint, Rocks Off, Ventilator Blues, and Happy. And that about wraps this up. Happy belated 50th anniversary, Exile on Main Street.